Hi friends, this is Callie. Thanks so much for joining me today. I've got a Slimline card to share with you using a new stamp set from the Simon Says stamp All the Feels release. I've got this beautiful Slimline Floral stamp set here. There are two images, one as a frame and one as a standalone image. And I'm going to stamp that image twice so that I can create my own frame for my sentiments that I'm going to use on today's card. I'm stamping twice now using my Misty, and then we'll begin by coloring with Copic markers. Now there are lots of little flowers and leaves to color, so I'm just going to show you one of each. It's very simple coloring. I'm laying down the dark first, blending it out with the medium, and then blending it out even further with the lightest color, and I'll be doing this to every petal and leaf. As it's numbered on the screen, I'm starting with the lightest color. It's how I like to number the Copic markers that I use. I go from lightest to darkest, even though when I color, I start with the darkest and go to the lightest. So I've colored all my pink flowers, and now I'm going to color the lavender. Now on my previous cards, if you've seen other cards from the release, I actually colored these lavender stems as little succulent stems. So it's a little bit of green and then a little bit pink at the tip. I felt that was a unique way to add different colors to a flower garden, but for this particular card, we're going to go ahead and stick with the traditional lavender colors. Moving on to these cone flowers, I'm coloring the top of the cones a brown shade, and then I'm using a peach color for the flowers itself. This color is really growing on me, and I'm starting to really love this coral peachy color. So I'm using R00 and R02. And then we've got these tiny little daisy-like flowers that I'm going to go ahead and color with light blue in B00 and B04. Super quick and super easy. All right, so now for the green leaves, there are 3 different types of leaves on this image. So I'm doing 3 different shades of green. So this first rounder ended cluster of leaves, I'm gonna color with G43 and G46. And then for these more traditional style pointed ended leaves, I'm using YG13 for my lighter shade, and then YG09 for that darker base shade. Last but not least, we're going to color in those tiny leaves, and I decided that they should be darker. So I am using G12 and G16, and again, super quick and easy coloring. I hope that that was easy for you to follow along, and in the end, we have this beautiful, colorful trellis of flowers, and I felt that my trellis should be an off-white grayish color, so I'm using a gray in C0 and C2. So very easy and very basic coloring, but you can add lots of pops of color, and I hope you enjoyed these color choices. So once everything is colored, I'm going to go ahead and use the coordinating die to die cut these 2 individual pieces. And then I wanted a really dark contrast background, and I've been loving seeing all the different contrast inspirations on Instagram and social media. So I decided to go with a dark blue cardstock. This is soft navy from Simon Says stamp. I chose my sentiments, and I'm going to go ahead and emboss that in white, again for contrast against that dark blue. I've prepped that area so that we don't have straggling powders, but I had to clean a few away anyway, and I find that the best way to do that is to use a little craft pick to scratch away those tiny little strays of embossing powder before you heat set. Okay, so now I wanted to add a little bit more shading and contrast to my cardstock, and I wanted it a little bit darker on the outer edges. So I'm using Black Soot Distress Oxide ink to just ink blend around the border of this panel. So when you're done, you can go ahead and trim off the edges like I like to do. I'm going to trim 1/4 inches off so that I have a crisp edge, and you can also use a slimline nested rectangle too if you prefer to use rectangle dies to cut your slimline panels. And now I am adding foam adhesive strips to the back of these images so that I can adhere them to the cardstock there. And I'm going to use my clear T ruler to help me line everything up. I am going to line it up so that it's about 1/4 inch away from that sentiment, and that T ruler just helps me make sure that it's straight going across. And then I'm going to do the same for the top. I'm going to have to move it up just a little bit because that S, that capital S, is in the way a little bit. So I'm going to have a little bit more of a blue border at the very bottom. So now I'm going to add a little bit of gel highlights just to give my card a little bit of interest. I like to do this all over, and sometimes I may go overboard, but I just keep going until I feel it feels right. I have a prepared slimline card base here that I am going to add adhesive to and then attach my card panel to, and that will give it a nice 1/8 inch matting all the way around my card, because remember, I cut off 1/4 inches after I ink blended the black around that navy cardstock. So before we finish, I felt like we needed to add some jewels. So I've got some Gina K Designs Angel Aura jewels here that I've laid out and made sure that I liked where everything was sitting before I adhered it down with glue. That finishes my card for today. I hope you've enjoyed this Slimline Florals card with the contrast background. That's not something that I do very often, so it's a little bit different and outside the box for me, but I hope you enjoyed it. I really appreciate that you stopped by to watch today. I hope you'll enjoy these 2 other videos and have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.